Uninhibited self-expression is in the stars for the upcoming Leo new moon. I'm going to talk about why the Leo new moon is a time to let your inner light shine and how to work with the Venus and Mercury retrogrades together in this month's new moon video. Hi, I'm Lori Barnes, the astrologer who helps people find their true calling. The upcoming Leo new moon on Wednesday is super interesting. It really connects with the Venus retrograde because it's also in the sign of Leo. Plus, there's an additional flavor to this Leo new moon and Venus retrograde with Black Moon Lilith being at the same degree in Leo as the new moon. Now, I haven't talked about Lilith Black Moon before, so I'm going to share its meaning in today's video. First, let's start with the date and time of the Leo new moon. It's coming up in the middle of the week on Wednesday, August the 16th at 2:38 in the morning, so early in the morning on the west coast of the US. It'll be at 5:38 a.m. on the East Coast and at 11:38 a.m. in Rome, Italy, where I'm broadcasting from. And this new moon happens at 23 degrees of Leo. New moons symbolically represent the beginning of a monthly lunar cycle. When the nighttime sky becomes dark, that dark night sky is shared by the end of the prior cycle called the balsamic period, which represents endings. It's like a time of rest and preparation for rebirth of the new cycle and the new moon. And then when the cycle is born, and this is like the darkest that the moon gets in the monthly cycle, you can't see in the sky, when that moment comes, when it goes from the balsamic period to the new moon phase. And, when the moon is reborn. And also it doesn't always happen at night, like in Rome, it'll be 11:28 in the morning. So, that's when the sun is shining. Thankfully, though, through astronomy, which was created and developed by ancient astrologers, astronomy shows us the way. It shows us how to find when that exact time of the new moon starts or the new moon phase starts. And that's why I give you these times. So you know that you are in the new moon phase and not in the prior balsamic phase, for when you want to do a new moon ritual, or you just want to be sure you're in the new moon phase. So the new moon is the beginning of the monthly cycle. It marks when the moon has traveled through the 12 zodiac signs and catches up with the sun each month in the next sign. The new moon phase is a good time to set intentions for what you want to grow, nurture, mature, and complete during the month-long cycle. So when you do monthly new moon intentions, make sure you focus on the time period of 4 weeks, which leads to the next cycle. So if you can't complete something in 4 weeks, then focus on completing a phase of whatever that thing is that you're focused on. So whether it's a big project or it's a few things that you want to complete over the next 4 weeks, just be specific as to what it is. New moons start, a little sleepy because they're just born. They're just coming out of that other world. It's like the metaphor of, like when a baby is first born into the physical world made manifest. It's a time when you're orienting yourself to this new phase and taking in the wonder of it all. New moons are a time to let yourself daydream a bit more and take it a bit more slowly and pay attention to what's coming up for you, through dreams, through thoughts, and through events or people around you. Now, I want you to get the most out of astrology. And to do that, you want to have a copy of your birth chart. If you don't have your birth chart or your natal placements memorized, you want to get your chart in front of you. The reason is because your chart has all 12 of the zodiac signs in it. Even if you're not a Leo, you have that sign somewhere in your chart. And your chart is divided up into the 12 astrology houses. And each of these houses represents a part of human existence. So when you know the sign that each house occupies, it's going to give you personal depth into all astrology horoscopes that you hear or read. And it does that by looking at what each house presents in the human experience. So please get your chart in front of you and find the Leo and Virgo houses in your chart. Also look for Taurus, because we're going to talk about how Taurus is involved with the Leo new moon through its relationship with the planet Uranus. Uranus is also traveling through 23 degrees of Taurus. I'm not a Leo, but the new moon is in 23 degrees of Leo. So that makes Uranus important in this configuration for the new moon, along with the sign of Leo, where the the sun and the moon are for the new moon. Now, Leo and Taurus make a square relationship with each other, and that means that there's a tension that can help push you into action. Square aspects are great for helping push us along in life to make needed changes. And if you don't have a copy of your chart and you're wondering where you can get one, you can get it free of charge very quickly just by doing an internet search. There's many sites that do that, but I recommend using astro.com because they have a wide variety of free reports that you can access in addition to getting your free natal chart. The other site that I recommend is astro-seek.com. These two sites are a favorite for many astrology students because they both offer a wide range of free reports. And if you're super new to astrology and you're unsure of what the houses mean, there is a link below to an article that I wrote on the houses that will explain what each one means. And you're going to look at that and where Leo, Virgo, and Taurus are in your chart. And that's going to help you get more personalized information. Okay, so here we go. Let's talk about the new moon in the sign of Leo. A new moon means that the sun and the moon are in the same sign at the exact same degree. And for this moon, it's 23 degrees of Leo. Leo is a sign that has to do with self-expression, creativity, passion, pride, ego, and it's well known for its noble and royalty signatures. Leo's the lion, king of the jungle. Leos are known for their warmth and generosity, for their cheerful and optimistic nature, and their need for recognition. The shadow side of Leo is to take more of the spotlight, leaving others out in the cold or unable to get a word in. And sometimes the Leo self-confidence can turn into overblown self-importance, or sometimes there's a condescending tone that comes out towards others. Leos are expressing their shadow. They tend to roar. When Leo feels the love, they purr. When they don't feel that they're receiving the recognition they deserve, they roar, right? And not in a good way. So the house in your chart that Leo occupies is going to tell you more specific information on how that Leo energy is going to show up based on your chart. So like if you're a Leo rising, your personality is Leo-like, and you're probably going to relate a lot to the dominant Leo energy happening in August, especially at the new moon. If Leo is your sun sign, it's like the central driving focus in your life. And the house placement of your sun will provide even more information as to where your attention is drawn to and the factors that become kind of a core importance to your life development. If Leo is your moon sign, it describes how you get your needs met in life, how you need to find emotional security. Leo needs recognition. Leo needs to be able to express itself. Leo needs to create and has a deep and protective love for its creations. And my mom is a Leo, and she's very protective of her kids and very generous also. Leos feel a need to produce and parent their creations, whether it's a child, a song, a piece of art, a major corporate project. Leos are keen on what their creations are, and they take pride in their development, so whether human or inanimate. And I'm going to run through a few examples of Leo on a house cusp. For example, if you have Leo on the 5th house, your creativity, children, and finding pleasure are all highly activated during this time. You may feel driven to pursue things that you're passionate about. And because of Venus retrograde there as well, you may be realigning and redefining your relationships with your children, your sexual partner, or pleasurable things in general, and the creative hobbies that you're passionate about. So with the new moon there as well, there's the opportunity to do self-work on ending situations that are no longer in alignment with your personal creativity and your self-expression. And your new moon intention may be to find ways to release your inhibitions and find freedom for your self-expression so that you can pursue your passion and your creativity. And this could also apply to how you find sexual pleasure, your personal creativity, or your relationship with your kids. It can show you where you need to realign something if you're overdoing pleasure, like if you have a sexual or gambling addiction, if you overexercise, if you're overbearing with your children. That's one example of taking Leo on the house cusp in your chart and blending it together. That was Leo on the 5th house. But what if you have Leo, let's say, on the 8th house cusp? Well, then that's going to be very different, right? If you have Leo on the 8th house cusp, you might be thinking about investing in therapy, learning more about psychology and how it can help you improve your relationships, or becoming creative with an inheritance, since the 8th house has to do with other people's money and resources and inheritances. Psychology is often the way that the entryway to the 8th house to help you find creative ways of working with it. It's also the house of death. So if you are thinking about anything related to death, it doesn't mean you are going to have a death experience because Leo's on your 8th house cusp. We only experience our own death once in a lifetime. So you have to think beyond that and how it applies to you in your life, in your situation. The new moon's going to be there, Venus retrograde is there, and also the Lilith black moon is there, which I'm going to talk about here in a moment. Let's look at one more house cusp. Let's look at if Leo is on your 10th house or occupies your 10th house in your chart. Then all this energy is going to have you looking at your career. Are you passionate about your career? Does it allow you to express yourself, or is it inhibiting you? If it's in the 11th house, you'll be looking at your network and your friends. If it's the 3rd house, you're looking at your daily environment, your work colleagues, your siblings, and the way you express yourself in verbal and nonverbal communication. If it's your 2nd house, it's going to highlight your value system, your resources, your income. If it's your 6th house, it's about your daily routine and how you're of service to others and your employees if you have them. If it's the 7th house, it's going to be about your committed romantic and business relationships. And if you see clients in a private practice, like if you're an astrologer like me, then that 7th house would also represent your clients. Now, it doesn't represent your clients if you work for someone else. Okay, so that's just kind of getting an idea about how to work with the house cusps. So you want to look at your chart, you want to see where Leo is, what house, and then you want to go read about that house and understand the topics and people that are related to that house, and then apply what I'm going to share with you today to that particular part of life. That's going to make it more personal. And to learn more about the house meanings, click on the link that I provided below to a blog that I wrote on the subject, and that'll give you what you need to know about the different house cusps and what they mean. Because Venus is in retrograde in Leo, there's an introspective quality to this new moon, and you're likely going to experience the desire to realign, redefine, or redesign some relationship or situation in your life that's associated with the meaning of Leo or the Leo house in your chart, right? That's why it's so important to know where Leo is in your chart. So now I'm going to shift over to that black moon Lilith, which makes this new moon in Leo so interesting. I don't usually work with black moon Lilith unless it's really active in an astrological configuration. And it is for this new moon. So that's why I'm going to talk about the symbology of it and the meaning of it and kind of tie it into what I think is a pretty magnified message in this Leo new moon. And typically for me to work with the Lilith black moon, it has to be in the same degree or maybe, 1 degree off to say that it's highly active. And as I mentioned already, it is definitely right there with the new moon, and it's in Leo. It's also in a square relationship with Uranus, just like the new moon. So that's really what we're going to talk about today, is how does all this come together? The Leo new moon and Uranus and Taurus square the new moon, and then black moon Lilith being right there prominent in the new moon configuration. Black moon Lilith isn't a moving body. It's not a planet, but it's a point. It's a moving point in the sky based on where the moon is the furthest from the earth. It's kind of like a shadow. And the symbolism of black moon Lilith in astrology has to do with uninhibited feminine energy. You've probably heard of Lilith from the Bible. She was the first wife of Adam, and she was banished from the Garden of Eden because she refused to be subservient to him. And by the way, if you want to see where Black Moon Lilith was when you were born, you would have to turn on that glyph when you go to get your free chart, so it'll show up. Now, it's a bit advanced to find it, but you can mess around with all the tools in astro.com and find the area to click on that glyph or the name Black Moon Lilith so that it shows up. And if you're looking for the glyph, the symbol, it's going to be a solid crescent moon on top of a cross underneath. So you can add that and print it out if you want to know more about its placement in your natal chart. But for now, we're just looking at its current placement in the sky, where it is in the sky on August the 16th as part of the Leo new moon chart. So Black Moon Lilith represents our deepest uninhibited desires that want to be expressed but are repressed. It relates to our inner feminine side. So those inhibitions, they're usually about fear, about what others are going to think. They keep us from letting them out, or we don't let them out because we're usually trying to fit in with society, with our environment around us. Those things, those things that you're afraid to let hang out for the public to see. Black Moon Lilith is non-compromising, anti-patriarchy. It's raw feminine power. This is often tied to sexuality, because with women, our sexuality has been stifled and dictated to us by a patriarchal society for a very long time. And for men, it's about you allowing yourself to freely express your feminine side and the women in your life. So if you don't identify with a gender, it's really about allowing yourself the freedom to express who you are and your sexuality based on your own definition. It's about you being you. Black Moon Lilith in the new moon chart may show us not only where the breakdown we have in society is between gender roles, but also some ways of repairing and realigning ourselves with true love. It's about stopping the patriarchal definitions of what should be and allow the raw feminine energy to have its equal place in the world. Now, personally, think about if you have your own repressed energy that's just screaming to come out. Where do you want more freedom? Where do you want to stop compromising yourself? In what ways are you yearning to live life on your own terms, but feel like you can't because you're worried or fearful about what others are going to say? So the rest of August is time to work on this. Take the message that we're getting, or messages that we're getting from Venus retrograde, and spend time in introspection during the Leo new moon phase to ponder these questions. What might Lilith symbolize as something coming into your consciousness that has been repressed? How can Black Moon Lilith help you understand something important about your self-expression that wants to come out of the shadow into the light? I mean, that's really the theme, the main theme of this new moon and the Venus retrograde, all in Leo, is let your inner light shine out into the world. Let it out. Give your inner light the freedom and encouragement to shine. Now, what is also likely to happen, what comes with that is, as our self-confidence, our fear is going to get in the way, right? If it does, if you want to like let it out, but you're struggling, use positive self-statements. Every time a negative thought or criticism pops up inside your head, that inner critic comes out. What you want to do is embrace it, give a hug, like a child who's scared. You want to give it a cosmic hug in your mind's eye and encourage it like you would do with any child that you dearly, dearly love. If you don't have kids, think about a child that you love or your inner child. And remember that you can tap into the strength that Lilith Black Moon represents. This symbology is imparted into our Leo new moon phase and the current Venus retrograde cycle. And it's even going to extend into the upcoming Mercury retrograde cycle. And I'm going to talk about that later in the video. But, just to kind of like bring this all together, the Lilith Black Moon is bringing in a mystical and uninhibited feminine energy that's in tune with nature and all of nature's moods. Let's hurricanes and peaceful sunny days and calm nights. She's non-compromising, she's anti-patriarchy. She's about freedom and living the life you want on your terms. You may find that by freeing up your passion, your uninhibited sexuality, and embracing freedom, you can be faced with being kicked out of a garden, right? Lilith was kicked out of the Garden of Eden. that can happen. You may find that when you demand your freedom, that you feel like you're no longer part of that garden. But that's the point. You stand up for yourself. You refuse to be subservient anymore to somebody else's will or live by the rules of someone else's garden. Like Leo, embrace your passion, your creativity, and your individual self-expression. Be you. Nobody else can. Only you can be you. And by the way, your garden is the best garden for you to be in, right? That's a great way to soak in the Leo new moon. Design your personal garden, like actually go design your personal garden. Use Canva, draw it out, or journal about it, or draw it, pencil and paper, and think about, like, what is your personal garden? What does it look like? Is it lush, full of growth like a jungle? Is it more succulent, like a desert landscape? Are there mountains? Is there a stream running through it? Is there a vegetable garden? Are there fruit trees? Think about, like, what does your personal garden look like? Your Garden of Eden. And try to design a garden that really represents your uninhibited feminine side, This isn't about your gender identity, but it's all the things represented by the receptive and nurturing natures that we all have inside of us. Okay. So now I want to add on another layer to this Leo new moon configuration, Uranus, as I mentioned earlier. So Uranus is in the mix, and what it brings to the new moon, Venus retrograde and Black Moon Lilith configuration that we've talked about is something unexpected or surprising. It could be something that creates chaos or tension in your life. There can be some sort of thing that happens that acts like a catalyst, and it pushes you to take growth-oriented action. Your mindset's really important here, because if you try to cling on and maintain the course, it's going to be much harder than seeing this as an opportunity for change. And, I don't know how that will show up for you in life, because that is going to be dependent on your chart. And also, the house, like you can look at the house where Taurus is, that's where Uranus is traveling through, and that's going to give you more information. And so you combine the house of Leo and the house of Taurus, and that's going to give you a lot of information about the part of life that's activated for your personal chart. The qualities of Uranus are like being rebellious, desiring reform, getting brilliant bolts of insight, seeking adventure, seeking freedom. Uranus is an objective type of planet. And I think those things sound a bit like Black Moon Lilith, right? There's definitely some similar overlapping language when you look at the meaning of Uranus and you look at the meaning of Black Moon Lilith. It's just, like freeing yourself to let your authentic, true, inner, divine, feminine nature out. So in astrology, when we see a similar message coming from a few different sources, like we are, then that message is magnified. So we really have this magnified message about freedom, your feminine nature, and your creativity and your passion. We have 3 different messages, similar messages calling for freedom, reform, and allowing our self-expression to let our inner self shine out into the world. Uranus isn't really focused on personal matters per se in general. It's mostly concerned with reform that benefits the masses. But when it's activating something in your natal chart, it becomes personal to you. You want to know if your chart's activated by Uranus or, well, any of the fixed signs, really. That would be Leo, the sign of the new moon, and Black Moon Lilith and the Venus retrograde, and then Taurus, which is the sign Uranus is traveling through. When these 2 signs are activated, they also can activate the other 2 fixed signs. Then you'll want to look at Scorpio in your chart and Aquarius. And if you have any planets or sensitive points around 23 degrees in any of those 4 signs, then your chart is activated. Okay, so you will know by having your chart in front of you, knowing how to find those 4 signs in your chart, and then understanding the meaning of the houses. And you're going to have far more information than any general horoscope is going to be able to give you. If your chart is activated, some things that you might feel a calling to go and do is maybe some more Uranus type stuff, like get involved with an organization that advocates for women's rights, LGBTQ rights, trans rights, something that helps open up the freedom of expression that goes directly against the tide of those focused on limiting people's rights, right? So we see a lot of limiting type of actions happening in the world right now. So you might want to get involved with organizations that try to open rights, not close them down. Leo and Taurus are always square by sign. And just remember that the closer in degree they are, the more intense that configuration is felt. If you have planets or points in any of the fixed signs, I'm just going to give them to you again. It's Leo, Taurus, Scorpio, Aquarius. Look at those parts of your chart. And if you have anything near 23 degrees of Leo, then the new moon and the Venus retrograde and all the things that I've talked about so far in this video are really active in your chart. You can see how this Venus retrograde and Leo full moon become even more focused on creative and individualized self-expression when we pull in the Uranus and the Black Moon Lilith factors. I mean, it's already there in the Leo new moon, but yeah, it's compounded. Do think about how this is showing up for you. Take advantage of how it can benefit you by working with it. Look at your houses for how you can hone in on your introspective work. So some questions that you can ask yourself are, where are you ready to shift into a new way of self-expression? One where you're ready to release caring about what others think. Journal about that. Where do you feel rebellious and ready to take back your power, take back control over your life, some part of your life, or your passion or your creativity? Think about what relationships are in need of reform and realignment. That has to do with the Venus retrograde in Leo. And the last half of August is an opportunity for you to work with these questions, to find your solutions and decide, what actions do you want to take? Do you want to take action? What new and innovative ways do you want to see your relationships move forward? This freedom that I'm talking about may mean a breakup. It could, but it doesn't have to. It could mean that you finally have the opportunity or the will to speak your mind and resolve some old relationship patterns that are no longer working. The new moon can be a time where you want to break the chains on something that's been holding you back, something that's been holding you back from uninhibited freedom, something that, once you take that step, there's no going back to the way it was, but that's okay. And, if your relationship is meant to be, it'll evolve and it'll adapt and it'll be better for everyone. As you're going through this introspective work on reform, freedom, and releasing yourself from some inhibition, there's Mercury retrograde. So we have that now to add into the mix. What I find really interesting about the Black Moon Lilith and the Leo new moon and the Venus retrograde is that during the time Venus and Mercury are retrograde at the same time, Black Moon Lilith travels between Virgo and Leo, so the signs of the Mercury and the Venus retrograde. So it's like ping-ponging from going direct and retrograde and direct and retrograde. It's kind of going back and forth between these two planets. And it's like it's trying to help build a bridge between the realignment of your relating style and your communication style. I'm not going to go back and repeat all the symbolism of Black Moon Lilith, but I just want you to think about what I shared earlier and how the symbolism of Lilith can now be applied to the Mercury retrograde, right? And in the Virgo house in your chart. So Black Moon Lilith traveling between Virgo and Leo during the time period of the Mercury and Venus retrograde, it calls you to look at where your freedom is inhibited, maybe through relationship, but also giving your inner voice a chance to be heard through your communication style. It's your relating style in relationships and your communication style, right? So, you might want to just put on Madonna's Express Yourself song on repeat, just listen to it for the next few weeks over and over and over as you're focusing on how you can let your inner light shine out and let your inner voice speak out. Mercury is the planet of communication, commerce, and technology. And so when Mercury's retrograde, we have to be more conscious of how we calendar our time because, there's a greater chance for delays and communication and technological breakdown. And usually when you have those breakdowns, it's a signal for you to look deeper into what needs some attention. what needs realignment, what needs reframing, what needs redoing. So to give those things attention, you need more time in your calendar to do that, to do anything that has RE in front of it, redo. So do be sure to try to put aside some extra time during the Mercury retrograde. As I mentioned before, this Mercury retrograde is going to take place in the sign of Virgo, and that will be between degrees of 21 and 8 degrees of Virgo. So look at the Virgo house in your chart, and what does it represent? What topics and people are related to your Virgo house position? That's going to give you more information. The sign Virgo is about detail. It's about service, perfectionism, critical assessment, and it's unique because it combines the qualities of Earth, the element of Virgo, and this mental or logistical thinking, because Virgo is one of Mercury's home signs. And, Virgo is very mercurial and practical. The shadow side of Virgo is getting lost in the details, losing track of the bigger vision, the old cliche, you can't see the forest for the trees. So the topics of the Virgo house in your chart is going to tell you where to be introspective as it relates to correcting the course on your bigger vision. You may have to soothe your inner critic and with those positive self-statements and, find balance between the detail work that needs to be done and making progress towards manifesting your bigger overall vision that you're working towards. We have a saying in marketing that it's better to get something done than perfect. And so not to say that details and high quality work aren't important. They are, for sure. And Virgo excels in that area. But what it is saying is that you can go overboard and lose track of the end game. And that's what Mercury retrograde is asking you to evaluate in the sign of Virgo, specifically around the topics of the Virgo house in your chart. So, if it's the 10th house, it's about your career. It's about, being a boss. If it's the 9th house, it's about your belief system and your philosophy in life. If it's the 11th house, it's about your networks and your friendships. If it's the 12th house, it's about secrets, the deep, dark things inside of you that you don't tend to share with the outside world. And it can also have to do with how you do your deep spiritual work, your meditative work. And it can have to do with institutions. Like if you work in a locked facility, like a prison or the psychiatric wing of a hospital, those are all 12th house things. If Virgo is your rising sign, it's in your first house. So it's all about you. And if it's your second house, it's about how you manage your finances and how you determine what has value for you in life. And if it's your third house, it's your communication. It's about, your colleagues in your immediate environment, your siblings are there as well. Fourth house is your home. Fifth house is your kids and your creativity. Sixth house is service and employees if you have them. Seventh house is your romantic partner or your business partner. And eighth house is your psychology, and it's about other people's money. It can be if your spouse's income or just shared resources. I think I touched on all the houses there, so hopefully that will help you. The Mercury retrograde is a time to slow down and review the progress that you've made since the last Mercury retrograde, which was April 21st to May 14th. And by taking these pauses every few months, you have the opportunity to catch small things before they become big things and correct your course before you get too far off track. When you work with Mercury retrograde, you get in sync with the cyclical nature of time. There's times to move fast and forward, and there's times to be introspective and reflective and move a bit slower. If you're struggling to understand the bigger vision in your life, look at the Pisces house, which is across the way from your Virgo house. What's the message there? That's going to talk about, your vision, your bigger picture. And you can also look to the midheaven in your chart. That's the sign on your 10th house cusp. Or if you use a whole house system, it can be in, the 9th or the 11th house. And that's outside of the scope of this video, so I'm not going to go into detail on that. But if you use the whole house system like I do, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So the information that you get from, those houses that I just mentioned will also help guide you on what to focus on in your introspection, your meditations, your Mercury retrograde work. By doing regular introspective work timed by these retrogrades, you are embracing and intentionally working with them, and you're going to benefit by taking a pause and giving some of your time over to this valuable self-development work. With both Mercury and Venus retrograde at the same time, from August the 23rd, when Mercury goes retrograde, until September the 3rd, when Venus goes direct, it's like a message from the universe to evaluate your communication and relationship style together at the same time. And I'll put the dates for the entire retrograde cycles for both in the description below, so you have them, with the shadow periods. And if you're not sure what shadow periods are, no worries. I wrote a blog article on that in an article called The Mercury Retrograde Survival Guide, and I'll link to that below as well so that you can read about that. But real quick, I do want to tell you that Venus went retrograde on July 22nd, and it will go direct on September 3rd. And Mercury goes retrograde on August 23rd, and it will go direct on September 15th. So those are those dates. I know astrology can be a complex, especially for a beginner, or if you're entirely new to astrology. And if you would like someone to do a professional chart reading for you, please schedule a consultation with me, and I can help you sort those things out. You'll find the links below to do that as well. So now I have some ideas for you, some things that you can do for your new moon intention, or when the new moon phase starts on Wednesday. Just remember that any new moon ritual that you do should start after the new moon phase begins. And, you can do it in the few days following the start of the new moon cycle. And you have the times because I listed them earlier in the video. So take an honest assessment of how freely you express yourself. Do you hold back your personality for fear of being rejected? Do you embrace and allow freedom of expression in others? How does control play a factor? Those are like journaling prompts. A new moon in Leo is usually a great time to do any kind of makeover. But with Venus retrograde in Leo, I wouldn't recommend doing significant changes right now, like plastic surgery, tattoo, cutting all your hair off. But it is a good time to evaluate what changes would allow you to express your true self, to get rid of those inhibitions. So maybe you want to dye your hair purple. Maybe you want to change the way you dress. Maybe you're tired of putting on layers of makeup every day and want to stop, but you worry about what others would think. So under this new moon phase, in this Leo new moon phase, it's a time to set intentions around finding your truth in your self-expression. And, you can wait until September after Venus is direct to make any of those significant changes, after September the 3rd. Well, I'd get a little bit further away, but, before you do any of those things that you can't return back from, wait until after Venus has been direct for a little while. And if you want to wait until Venus is out of her shadow, then you're looking at October the 7th to be out of the shadow. Like if you did want to get a tattoo, or you did want to cut all your hair off, or you do want to get, plastic surgery, whatever it is that you want to do, I would wait until after October 7th for anything really significant. Take some time, let your ideas sink in, look at them from different perspectives, review all your options, take your time, and then take action, later on. Retrogrades are not about hasty decisions and quick action. Other things that you can do under the Leo new moon, do anything you're passionate about and things that bring out your creativity. A Leo new moon is a time to, let your body move, go out, go dance. Or stay at home and dance. The point is to let your body feel free, let it move. Another fun thing to do is anything that has to do with kids, whether it's your kids, others' kids, things that make you feel like a kid again. Go have fun, be childlike. And then the last thing that I highly recommend is that you prepare for the Mercury retrograde. It's going to go retrograde on the 23rd, just 1 week after this new moon. Mercury will go retrograde in the new moon half of the cycle, you know, the waxing cycle, when the moon goes from the new phase to the full moon phase. This is, you know, an active and building up cycle. And Mercury goes retrograde during that phase. So it's kind of like take action, but slow down and be introspective. And really the actions that you're taking are going to be more about how to realign things. It's going to be taking action about things more from the past, evaluating things from the past, being reflective about the past. So more that than doing new things and starting new things, which does tend to be associated with the new moon, but we have to look at all of the different energetic things happening during a new moon phase. And this one is definitely one that has more introspection and reflection built into it because of the number of retrogrades that we're working with. And we're talking about personal planets being retrograde, you know, Mercury, our communication style, Venus, our relating style. When we're talking about outer planets that are retrograde, there's a different vibe to that. And again, that's like a whole other video. It's outside of the scope. So I'm not going to go into detail on the meaning of each planet retrograde, but just know that Mercury and Venus retrograde are very personal retrogrades for you to work with. Okay, I'm going to wrap up with an inspirational quote, actually a few, for you that relate to the Leo new moon. The first one is from Allen Ginsberg, who says, "Follow your inner moonlight. Don't hide the madness." Say that's more from Lilith, right? Quotes from Allen Ginsberg, but it's very symbolic of Lilith. And the next one is from Tyra Banks, who says, "Never dull your shine for somebody else." Oh, I love that. That's, you know, so what this new moon is all about. The next one is from Mahatma Gandhi, who said, "I want freedom for the full expression of my personality." Yes, I want that for all of you. And the last one is from Oprah Winfrey, who says, "If we're really committed to growth, we never stop discovering new dimensions of self and self-expression." Gotta love Oprah. I really appreciate you watching this video and making it all the way to the end if you're still here with me. I hope that you enjoyed what you watched today, and if so, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. If you would like a personal astrology consultation to learn more about the Black Moon Lilith in your chart, or what to expect from the retrogrades, or just to get a better understanding of your natal chart in general, please schedule a consultation with me at loribarnesastrology.com or email me at hello@loribarnesastrology.com, and I'll include the links below. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time for the full moon. Ciao.